Hello again, everyone. Ni hao. It's been a while, but I'd like to discuss why that's happened and then go into something that's been on my mind for a long time and has taken a while to be able to express in a kind of format like this. So at the end of July in 2021, the contract on my work that was in Shanghai finally came to an end. Now, I hadn't returned home in a long time, in around 3.5 years, mostly due to complications with travelling and then the epidemic. A lot of what I'd expected from England had been some rose-tinted spectacles because of the longevity in which I hadn't returned to it. When you're stuck in a place like China, in which there's vast collectivism and you become one number in a mass of people. For example, in the area that I lived in Shanghai, just in the 2 mile by 2 mile community of apartments, there must have been around 60 to 70,000 people that lived there. This is quite an impossible number when you consider the fact that the town that I grew up in Scunthorpe, a small town in the north of England, is the same size, but the area in which it covers is much vaster. When you're in this kind of environment, it wears you down. The stress of day-to-day work, combined with being a constant foreigner, even the daily chores are difficult because you have to operate in a different language, in a different culture, and be viewed as a definite outsider. The fatigue sets in pretty quickly. The way that me and my now wife tried to offset that was by visiting different countries in the area in various holidays. But with the situation being as it is in the pandemic, that came to a halt fairly quickly. By the time it would reach the end of July, I was quite excited to return home. It had been a very long time, 3.5 years away from family, especially with someone like me who's part of a vast family of siblings as the eldest one. You see a lot of changes in your family very quickly. If you spend 3.5 years away, things change without you realizing. The thing is, though, even though you'd expect children to change and you'd expect your parents to change, one thing you really don't expect is for your country to change so dramatically in such a short space of time. When we consider units like nation states, these things have operated across vast areas of time, especially something like England. England is a very, very old place with a very old culture, and the indigenous people here have been here for a very long time. And this is the same in China. The Han people have occupied the Yellow River and the valleys around it for over 3,000 years. And so you don't expect that when you're away for 5 years for things to change very much, and you certainly don't notice the change that you've made in yourself. The problem is, on returning to England, aside from the obvious recouping and re-engagement with family, the actual re-engagement with the society itself has been a very hard process for me, and it's had a significant impact on my ability to work and my motivations in life. England has become an occupied and disparate state. Over the last 30 years since the Blair government, the face of the country has changed significantly and dramatically. Even in a place like Scunthorpe, a relatively small town, my grandma once made a comment to me upon my returning that sitting in a small car park parking lot for Americans and observing the passers-by, that she felt like she was in a different country. She still uses the terms that we would have considered normal 50 years ago, like, who's really English anymore? The term English not meaning a amorphous identity that can encompass those who come to this country, but instead the ethnicity of the Anglo-Saxons, the people who settled this land, who changed it into a functioning country, who developed it as a Leviathan economy, who created its vast institutions that are now being picked apart by invaders and weaklings. England is a changing place, and not for the better. And it's why I want to make this statement. that I'm seriously considering returning to the Middle Kingdom. This is hard to say. It's been a long time since I returned to England, and a lot of my experiences in China weren't necessarily pleasant. One has to get used to the fact that you're a foreigner and you become in the foreign mindset. The thing is, though, that mindset wasn't particularly useless when I returned to my own country. Merely moving to different parts of the north, I've suddenly come to realise that parts of this place have become foreign in itself. No longer English, but a vast, diverse, globo homo community of people who claim to be British in the most inverted commas possible. It's a difficult thing to realise that the strength and unity within the Chinese culture made it very easy to get on in life and only concern yourself with the small day-to-day chores. The difference in England is the day-to-day chores are overshadowed by much larger issues. That the nation itself is in flux, on the edge of collapsing, and everyone knows it. I only speak to the people, especially the young, that live here, and they constantly go on about how this place has been taken over by foreigners, how the economy is on the edge of bursting, how everything's far too expensive and can't carry on like this. And the pandemic itself has not helped the situation. The pandemic has turned the English people, who were once known for the rebellious streak and for petitioning themselves against their king, into a cucked majority that cowers in its own homes and muzzles itself in public because of some finite infinitesimal virus that has a 97% survival rate. Frankly, the Chinese way was much preferable to this. I much preferred being a foreigner in a state that was prospering to a native in a state that's severely collapsing. The social disparity here is sickening, and the way that the people treat the community here is disgusting. My experiences here have made me come to the realization that perhaps the countries that we believe exist don't really exist anymore. The fantasies that we carry on in our heads, the national anthem, the flag, the culture, the people, the ethnicity, these things don't really exist anymore. They've been long co-opted and diluted until the reality of such is just a thin paste that barely resembles its origin. The thing is, perhaps we need to tell ourselves these, because it really does keep us away from the edge. That's it for now. Zaijian.